And a good evening to you, and welcome to this evening's edition of Politics 101. David Hines here on a Wednesday night in Guyana. It's always good to come to you from Guyana, home base, and to share our thoughts and our perspectives with you tonight. Our guests are going to be what you guys have dubbed the Spin Twins. We in the West Indies, we are accustomed to fast bowling quartets and twins. But we did have spin twins back in the old days, those two pals of mine, Ramadan and Valentine, the famous 1950 victory over England in England the first time, and the Calypsonian. I think it was Lord Beginner who uh, sang that famous calypso, Cricket, Lovely Cricket, at Lord's where I saw it. Those two pals of mine, Ramdin and Valentine. Well, yeah, you all have been calling for the Spin Twins, Dr. Jeffrey and GHK Lall, and they are back together tonight after a little break. Yes, yes, the Spin Twins are back. Yes, Dennis Booker. Yes, the Spin Twins are back tonight. Welcome to Politics 101. We have been a little in and out. Well, let me put it this way. On the nights when we have not been on the set, we have been on the ground. Last night we broadcasted from Den Amstel, of course, the WPA public meeting in Den Amstel last night, and of course last week we were in Mocha Arcadia. Good evening to the people of Mocha. And then on Sunday night, we were in Golden Grove. All vibrant meetings. So obviously, we're glad to see us out. And many of them gave us the message to say who says which party is dead and which party is not dead. Good turnout, good vibes, and it is clear that people want to see the political parties out there. Certainly, if they have nothing to tell them in terms of affirmatively what they should do, certainly to be out there and share with them their angst and their anxieties. Of course, the WPA launched what it called all the political approach. We call for a civil disobedience and a non-cooperation on the part of people. What they can do to deal with the frustrations and the attacks on their lives, economic and political and cultural. In Golden Grove, the mother of Quinton Bacchus and his grandmother was there. I had a chance to talk with them. They were at the meeting and they were very glad to see us. They gave us some messages to give to the other political leaders, which we shall not deliver in public, but suffice to say that they were glad to see a political party on the ground with them, as members of their community are being charged for terrorism. And when we got there, it was the night before Robin Simon, who was the live wire behind the activities following the death of Quindon, the murder of Quindon Bacchus. She turned herself in to the police on Monday after a wanted bulletin was issued for her. We have not had word yet whether she has been charged, but she was taken into custody on on Monday. And so we were in Golden Grove on Sunday night, lending solidarity to the community. And there were murmurs that they were left alone and the political forces weren't there. But the WPA was in there. Meeting at Moko, well, that was something else. I mean, the people of Morocco were much more upbeat and ready, and they were quite vocal in their welcome of us there. And then last night, like I said, we were in Denham still, and tomorrow night we're going to be in Buxton. We're going to be in Buxton tomorrow night. We're going to be in Buxton tomorrow night. The PPP through its mouthpieces are already beginning to say that the WPA is going into for the kill to replace the PNC in the African Guyanese community. And you know, all that good stuff. Tomorrow night at Buxton, the PNC leader and leader of the opposition will be a guest speaker on the WPA platform. It's a tradition of our party that when manna falls from heaven, you share it. At Mocha, we had the PNC parliamentarian, Nima Flubes, on our platform. And it's something that goes right back to 1979, in the days when we were on the road. And we would invite the PPP, who was an ally then, to send a guest speaker. Almost in every instance, they sent Moses Nagamutu. We later found out he was the only one bold enough to volunteer to come, because in those days we hear blows, and Chelly and all the others were hiding in Freedom House. And Moses was the only one who would come to those meetings in 1979. So it's an old tradition of our party that we share the platform, especially when the platform is getting attention with our allies in the opposition. As you all know, we're not part of the APNU. We are independent, but we consider ourselves part of the opposition. And so we invited the leader of the opposition to join the platform in Buxton tomorrow night. So he will be speaking there as a guest speaker. And we want to set that example for other political forces, especially when you're up against the kind of hard-nosed domination that Henry Jeffrey warned us against and about a long time ago. The domination. Good evening, Mr. White. Yeah, it was good to see you at the meeting there in Mocha. Good evening to you, and good evening to all the people of Mocha and the people of Denhamstel. Thank you all for hosting us and for having us. Good evening to Golden Grove, and we'll make sure that you're not left alone and not forgotten. Welcome to all of you. We were able to stream the public meetings live, and so we had another 1,000 people or so live on the public meetings. So the days of technology, you know, back in the old days, you spoke to who were there. Now you're speaking to the people there, and then you're doing simultaneous live streaming, and so you're speaking to another 1,000 people are from different communities have already been inviting us to go to their communities. We'll take those invitations under active consideration and see where and how our resources can take us to the places that have requested public meetings. The PNC itself has been holding public meetings, not as regular as the WP. On Sunday night, they were in All Boys Town while we were in Golden Grove. So it's good. It's good to see the political parties on the ground. And one of the lessons I have learned from the public meetings this past week is that people want to hear from us in their communities. Those who've been arguing that social media have taken over the traditional public meeting, oh no. People, you saw the women coming and bringing their, these days not benches, they brought their chairs out to the meetings last night in Amstel and in Mocha. You saw people coming out with their chairs and bringing it. Reminds us of the old days. So the public meeting concept, the street corner meeting is not dead. It's not dead. At Golden Grove, they were the stalls since we held it to the marketplace. And so people took up their seats in the stall. So it's a lesson to us who believe that social media have taken over, that the concept of the public meeting is still there. I suppose there's a time and season for everything. The frustrations people are feeling, and they want to feel that their political people, or leaders, as they may call some of us, are there with them. So good evening and welcome to Politics 101. If you're joining us from North America, welcome. Those of you who are coming to us from the wider Caribbean, welcome to Politics 101. For those of you out there in French Guyana and Suriname, welcome. And to you in Guyana, welcome to Politics 101. Of course, I am coming to you tonight from Guyana myself. It's always a pleasure to be here, to be home. And as I promised at the beginning of the year, I shall make this, as a friend of mine would say, a regular occurrence. Tonight, we're having Dr. Jeffrey and Mr. GHK Lall, who are back, as you all call them, the spin twins. The spin twins are back, and we shall be dealing with some of the issues that have occurred over the last couple of weeks. So let me bring my guests in immediately. Dr. Henry Jeffrey, good evening, and welcome back to Politics 101.
Thank you very much, David. And my reasons for being off, I've explained to you that I was doing some other things, and well, they took up some time. But I'm back. We shall see where we go.
And Brother GHK Lall, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening to our viewers and listeners, and good evening, Dr. Jeffrey. Good to share the platform with you again, and we shall see where this goes, as you say.
Well, in your absence, as I've been saying, the viewership has dubbed you all the spin twins. And as I look at Dr. Jeffrey, you look a little bit like Al Valentine with his and all. I don't know what Ram used to look when he was a younger man.
But, he had a full hair ahead. He had a full hair ahead.
But yes. So people have dubbed you all the spin twins. Let's start with something that has become quite a part of the offering by the PPP. Itbadaji had an event last Sunday, and the event was slated to take place at the Technical Institute, GITC. And on the night before, they received a missive telling them the place was no longer available. They had to move the event to Crystal Labor College. We got some of that, I think, the year before. The Burnham Foundation wanted to hold an exhibition on Burnham at the National Library. And on that occasion, they got the similar message. The place was no longer available. I was around on the ground a long time ago, and to remember that in the 1970s, 80s, we had large doses of those kinds of political gymnastics. And the PPP at that time was in the opposition. And one would have thought that, having themselves been victims of that kind of thing, that in 2023, we would not face that kind of, I call it petty politics, And I thought that we have not outgrown many things, but certainly we have outgrown that kind of pettiness. But it seems as though I I'm wrong. GHK Lall?
Well, not only we have not grown, we have not learned anything. We have not learned anything from the 80s when the government, then opposition, was on the receiving end of those kinds of acrobatics and gymnastics. And what we have today is are those same gymnastics being taken to another level. You the night before, you're gonna suddenly drop a line and say, you can't come. All right. This was also done, if I remember last year, Labor Day, when some people were to meet with from the Trade Union Congress were to meet with the president. And then correct me if I've gotten this a little bit skimpy. And on the morning, he invited a few, and then the whole thing fell apart because some people said, no, we'll not be a part of that. So what I'm gathering here, the latest salvo aimed and delivered at Itpadaji is that, listen, you either toe the line or you get out of the line, or you do it our way, or it will not be done at all. So the government is on the back foot here, because from what I'm reading in the media, based on where Chairman Alexander has taken this matter, the loose lips sink ships. And the Honorable Vice President, and I'm going to go here right now, Dr. Hines, if you'll permit me, as we were talking about it, Paraji, they came out with guns blazing about who fraud and who did wrong and how the money being misused and so on and so forth. And a lot of hurtful and vile accusations were hurled. And Paraji on its part said, hey, listen, we have got the paperwork, we've got the documents, we are ready to sit down, we have given them to you before. Why are you going down this malicious road? Why are you going down this road that sabotages not just Hitpadaji, but the 65 entities, organization that comes under the Hitpadaji umbrella? And at this particular time, this decade, the brazenness, the maliciousness, as we say in Guyana, the donkey dam. We don't care. We will do it anywhere. But I think, and it happened. So I think what happened is when the lawsuit was filed, and then internally the advice came and said, hey, listen, these people got your debt to rights. You got nothing against them. So, and then the Chief Justice acting came in and said, listen, y'all put all your heads together and come to a place that works out a resolution. I think the PPP got a a, a face-saving gesture there through the judicial system apparatus, and it sees it because I notice now the Attorney General has signaled, and Nigel Hughes is still, I don't know where he's at with it, saying, well, look, let us, pursuant to the Chief Justice directive, let us sit down within the month and come up with some names. When the PPP starts to talk about mediation, it does not hold the high ground anymore. It does not have the upper hand. Therefore, it is looking to fold its tent, but very, very subtly, very carefully, and by holding out what is looked upon as an olive branch when we started talking about mediation. The people at Itpadaji were libeled. The Itpadaji organization was targeted, and the people who are the beneficiaries down the line were made to pay a price. And those people are of one segment of this population, which feeds into what has been going on into the other areas that you were talking about before and that we will continue to talk about tonight. What we've been talking about in many of the programs. Dr. Jeffrey will speak again, I think, not to preempt him, about total domination and control and how this cannot work. And it is not working because some of these things are backfiring. Ipadaji is one of those. The PPP does not withdraw, it does not retreat. But in Padaji development, I'm seeing that still, it has the nerve and the gall to do what it did at the GTIC and say, well, go to Crichton Labour College. Deal with that. We are still in charge and we still call the shots. But more and more people on the ground are pausing and paying attention, and they don't like to see without an opposition voice speaking. They don't like to see and to hear what is coming out of the government. They see a lot of viciousness that is not necessary, a lot of vileness and vindictiveness that have no place in our society of today. And they really are tired of it and they don't want any more of it. And this thing cannot continue like this, the merry way that the PPP think that it will go. That's it.
Dr. Jeffrey, Ipadaji again. What's going on?
Well, thank you, David, again. We have to understand a few things. What Ipadaji is doing is a total contradiction to what the PPP wants to do. So you can't be surprised that the PPP behaves as it is behaving. Ipadaji wants to develop into African people a can-do attitude. A can-do, you can do this. The PPP do not want that to be developed in Africans. The PPP wants essentially to be in a position to suppress Africans because they want to suppress the PNC votes. And that is not going to happen if you have people like Ipadaji going around the country telling they can't do this and can't do that. You are giving them $8 million really to counter your program, to counter what you want to sell. I heard I think it was the president this morning saying, oh, he will speak to church leaders and social leaders of the community, not talking about political leaders. The president wants to depolitize Black people. And it's the worst thing anybody can do to somebody in a society. A society is a political construction. And nobody has the right to try to depolitize you, to determine who should and should not be your representatives. I don't care what position they have. They must respect your representative, but they don't want to do that. The PPP, and just now, GHK says, oh, well, the PPP, no, you said, not GHK. But the PPP you are talking about this is not the same PPP. This is a big mistake we are making, all the parties, as a matter of fact. You are talking about the PPP like if it's the PPP of Jagan or the PPP of that time. It's a different PPP. This is a PPP in for domination. Jagan was a PPP in for cooperation. I am not saying that Jagan did not use ethnicity to win votes and all that. You put ethnic people, ethnic politicians in any context, they do that. But I'm saying everything I know of Jagan was an attempt to be cooperative, to try to see how we can work together, to do things together. Now you are going to take away from a citizen their political rights. I don't know what power you got to do that. God can't do that. That's why I'm in a society. I got political rights. And you are saying, oh, we are not going to talk to your leaders, but we are going to talk to church people and social civil society leaders. What kind of crap is that? I have heard a lot of things, but let me say, I hope that is not what I really heard, because it was in the morning. But how anybody gonna say anything like that? So the first thing, the PPP that you are talking about today is not Jagan PPP. I don't think the PNC is born on PNC. Indeed, African people walk around all the time and say that the PNC today is not African PNC. It's not born on PNC. But yet we use the term PNC as if a differentiation should not and would not be made. And then I think the point was made that they want to sabotage the apology. But that's not the truth. They're seeing Mr. Alexander and his group sabotaging them. They're in total contradiction as to their objective. Alexander and his group trying to build black people, trying to do all this thing. And if they're doing that, they must recognize when they are being discriminated against. They must. They can't avoid it. You can't go in a place and people are telling you, you claim you represent in this decade of peoples of African descent and don't know that. So Alexander, they got to, no matter what they feel, they must deal with this issue. But the PPP don't want to deal with it. Even that issue would not solve the problem. Even if you solve that, it would not solve the political situation in Guyana, because politicians can make anything of the other's view. But I'm going to tell you, I kept saying, if the PPP thinks that it has been doing so well, that it loves black people and it has been looking after them equitably in the situation, they have all these resources that they are throwing all over the place. Why don't they do an ethnic disparity analysis, call people together, and let's see an ethnic disparity analysis of how this wealth in this country has been distributed over the period of time. Britain do it. Britain did an ethnic disparity analysis. If you bring the same civil society and churchmen and everybody, get them together and say, look, Jagan would have done it. You remember Jagan, what he did? Jagan said, you all want increase in salary? Jagan said, set up a committee and said, give them the books. Of course, it started a raucous in the PPP because the people who were there didn't want to give. Oh, you would just give the books. And Jagan did it. And that's how you end up with the Armstrong arbitration and all that. So the PPP got a way of saying to black people tomorrow morning, since we came to office, you have not been worse off. You have been better off. You have kept abreast. Do an ethnic disparity, and if you can do it in England, why you can't do it here? So I know all of that it's a joke. Their motive, the apology is doing things that are contradictory to what the PPP wants to do. The PPP believes it must beat down the African people. It doesn't think necessarily that they'll vote for them, but they must make them uncomfortable and they must make them feel like they're opposition or nobody, that they are all weaklings and it's gone away and all of that. And they want to do that. And they are hoping to suppress your votes in this way. Any vote you get will be suppressed. And they're not going to do that. That ain't gonna happen if you're well off and all over the place and think. No, you remember what happened in the 50s when some social researchers, I think it's Professor Smith, went to the in the canals and in the creeks and asked the farmers why they support Jagan, and that the British and these people gave them tractors and all this thing and still going to vote for Jagan. You know what the people say? If it wasn't for Jagan, we to get it, they would have give way. So they know that if you becoming well off, it gonna make you vote for them. If you are poor and they can get you some people to to fall for all of this thing, and you need them, that is what then they can suppress your vote if you don't vote for you. So this is where you are. This is where you are. They are into set little grants. Let's give some grant here, and therefore you can choose who you give the grants to. You can walk around and give any old person the grant you want. They're into gold. They don't want gold scholarships. Why? Because they want the proper governmental structure to distribute scholarships. They don't. You have a governmental structure that you can, all right, whatsoever fault it has, you should be there. Your government, let's make that structure, because you got to live not only for the PPP government, for any new government. But they don't want that. They want gold scholarship so they can get their henchmen to sit down orange people, because now I mean, so it's scholarships where they go who ain't got and all these sort of things. You think they're looking after Carnegie? Not at all. They're giving away, they're going to Barbados and say, you come and, help the tourism industry and all this culinary and other. What is going on here? They want to be in control. They have to be in control. They have to suppress your votes, and that is the end of the game. What the party is doing is in contradiction to what the PPP wants, and you must expect nothing else than is happening to you or to them.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey there saying, yes, it comes down to control. Happy International Women's Day today, March 8th, International Women's Day, to all our women, our females. Happy International Women's Day. The world still remembers that women still have a long way to go to achieve that gender equality that that we have been working towards over these past decades. So the women in the audience and to women all over the world, happy International Women's Day. Good evening, Rhonda Lane, who spoke on our platform this past week and was very instrumental in helping us to organize the meeting at Den Amstel. Good evening to you, Rhonda, and big up to you. Happy International Women's Day. GHK, this was not on our agenda to talk about, but are you at all surprised that a quote-unquote small party that has not been very active on the ground over the last couple of years went into these communities and got a relatively warm, a very, very warm response that I think surprised even the leaders of the WPA themselves, the kind of response they got. So you first, and then Jeffrey.
Well, I am not surprised at all, because I can tell you from the ground up, and I don't travel as much, and I'm hearing this from people who can't say it publicly, who are fearful of saying it publicly. And this goes not just with people who didn't vote for the PPP, but people who voted for them, who are diehard supporters that thing no regular, thing bad. Them chaps this, them banners this bad. They're overdoing the thing. We heard this in the first 23 years, and we are hearing it again in a matter of 2.5 years. Their own people are stopping and shaking their heads negatively and saying, no man, not again. So I am not surprised at all. As a matter of fact, I think this will only grow because people are impatient. They are frustrated with what is happening with the governance of this country, with the stewardship of the oil, and with the distribution of the pie. Now, I want to go to something, a couple of things that Dr. Jeffrey said, and in response to your question, total control and contradiction, the work of the Itpadachi. Total control, and you go about to flinging about money here and there to calm some people down, to reassure your allies. You're creating a dependency syndrome. These people must come to you, and I think the president himself has said, "You gotta come to me." This is a president. This is a head of state. You gotta come to me, right? So he must be one. Think of himself as one of those old time mandarins from the Orient. All right, where you gotta come down and kowtow at his feet, and so on and so forth. And so dependency syndrome is being nurtured and fueled, but it's not catching hold. So that is why when you folks go, you can get listening ears. You can get people bringing their chairs and camping and saying, like if it's an old time political revival setup, we want to hear, because all we've been hearing are lies and falsehoods and deceptions, things that don't add up, things that we can't put our hands around. In terms of the ethnic disparity analysis that Dr. Jeffrey is talking about, we were talking about this before the program became live. I saw two headlines yesterday, two headlines, and they're compiled by this fellow with a PhD from somewhere in Washington, D.C. And they make for interesting headlines. I don't go beyond the headlines because essentially I can figure out what is going on in the gist of it. The first headline said Guyana's GDP growth results in 17,000 US dollars per capita. That's $3.5 million per Guyanese, man, woman, and child. 750,000, 760, 80, whatever that number is. Towards Dr. Jeffrey's ethnic distribution analysis, how many, let's not even go in terms of ethnic yet, how many poor Guyanese, black, brown, indigenous, participated or can say that they have tasted anything remotely resembling 17,000 US dollars for all of last year? When the numbers, and I will not dispute the numbers are there, and I happen to agree with them. 17,000, that's how rich we are. That's how well positioned we are. And across the board, so what we have is about 95%, give or take, of that total, the accumulated $17,000 per person, going to 5% of the population, less than 5% of the population. Those people with their shore bases and their land bases and their land cruisers and whatever else. The other 5%, the other 95% of the population got to scramble around and fight around for the 5% that's remaining. There is your national distribution analysis. When you look at it from an ethnic standpoint, it's worse yet. Because you have, and we know this, communities who are being bypassed and ignored. We have whole sets of people, sections of people, public servants, nurses, teachers. Who are the people there? Policemen, discipline forces. Who are the people there that are not taking part, are not part of the prize, are not part of the pie? And that is a stark reminder of where we are behind all the numbers behind the numbers, the people who are feeling the pain, the people who can't make ends meet. The other headline was from Dr. Ashley Singh, the Honorable Man of Money, Minister of Money. Let's make it simple. Don't wear that long title. The Honorable Minister of Money. Oh, the oil economy alone last year did better than expected. Better than expected. That's his words. At 124.8% growth. My God. Our economy, Dr. Hines, Dr. Jeffrey, grew more than double, 124.8%. And The best you could give the pensioners in this country is 5,000 Guyana dollars. Huh? 17,000 US dollar per head. Mine rowing. I will not argue with the calculations. I'm taking your own numbers. 17,000 US dollars, $3.5 million per man, woman and child. And you gain pensioners $5,000? Huh? You give the income tax, the people who work in a $10,000 increase in the tax threshold, the tax exempt threshold, so was the $3,000 a month. I mean, this is beyond vulgar. This is obscene. Our economy doubled and our people are shrinking. The World Bank said 48% of the people living on $5.50, 1,100 Guyana dollars a day. Go to the market and you're lucky if you could put together one meal for them. Forget about 3 square. Reality, folks, this is your distribution analysis writ large. This is your distribution analysis in blood, sweat, tears, pain, and agony. So that is why, Dr. Hines, when you go and beat a drum and you ain't got nothing for say, even if you ain't got nothing for say, the people are going to come out because they're frustrated, they are angry, and they are impatient. And this thing, no matter all this control business, this thing can't hold. This is not to alarm anybody. This is not to threaten anybody. This is to alert our brothers and sisters in charge. Don't go down this road. Please hear these little bells ringing by little people like me and say, you know what, the man onto something. The man feeling a little pain too. No matter he come from outside. But he's feeling some pain and he's speaking for those who don't have a voice because they don't write letters, they don't write columns, they don't run the television and the radio, but they got for live and they can't feed their children. And there is our economy. There is our fastest growing economy and top 5 and the richest GDP and all those lovely, lovely, lovely numbers. What does it mean for them? What does it mean for us? After all the numbers are sifted through and parsed through, how has this made the lives of the ordinary Guyanese and of every Guyanese different other than the big shot and fat cats? And as long as no change is happening, nobody's listening, people will come out. They are looking for the kind of leadership that will, and I'm going to use a word here, that will inspire them. Notice I didn't say spark them. That will inspire them, give them hope. And you, when you go out, WPA, whether this day, some other goes out there, people who have been through the ranks, been down the road, up the road, and they will say, we've been waiting for you. We've been waiting for you. And that is why you get that kind of welcome that you get.
GHK Lall there, and certainly your assortment, your assertion there just now, we've been waiting for you, is the kind of feeling that I got. Henry Jeffrey, you've been around this party thing, story and thing a long time, and I suppose you have a feel for how communities respond, when they respond, what they respond to. Are you surprised that people, despite all the frustrations and lack of movement and the opposition party in a particular direction, they're ready to come out to listen to political parties?
No, not at all. Not at all. And but I think most of the people see you as part of the solution. They see the PNC as part of the solution. No matter you walk away from the PNC, they still see you as part of the solution to what is going on. And during the election, you used to walk around and apologizing for the government. People remember. People always remind me of that. You think a man walking around apologizing for them. No. So, no, they see you as part of the solution. It's as simple as that. The PPP is not the solution. The PNC might be the other part of the solution. They see no reason, indeed, for, although there might be strategic reasons, they see no reason for this differentiation, and they are not going to make any differentiation between you and the PNC as such to say. And the PNC is not attempting to make them do that too, and I don't think they'll succeed even if they did. The truth is that you are out there, you have been struggling with to try to make this arrangement a bit more democratic, a bit more responsive, and therefore they support you. They don't see themselves as walking away from the general drift towards a better society by coming and supporting you. You see, the great, remember, the IRI one says that the PPP has its own trouble. Remember the IRI, the Republican Institute, did a research that said only 22% of people believe that this government is a representative of the people of Guyana. 22%. Of course, the PPP, the PNC goes on its high horse and say, well, that's all the vote the PPP got at the last election. Well, I won't go there. I don't think that is true. But what is going on in Guyana is the people know what is going on in Guyana. This is not what you call a regular democratic country. It's a country that all sort of manipulation goes on for votes here, there, and there. Too many people are involved in this for people not to know on a widespread basis. So no matter what you tell people, now you might try to blame 2020 election. You might go there now and try to blame the poor Claudette Singh, that she needed managerial. I read that in the Chronicle that she needed legal advice. She's a judge. She did one of the best cases in terms of, well, more radical. Now we don't say best, but radical cases. Remember the case involved with Miss Jagan,
1997, there's the Pereira case.
Right. And she's saying, you are now saying this lady here, she didn't have managerial and legal, she needed managerial legal advice. Well, I'd be saying it from day one, because since election time, because if she had managerial and legal advice, if she had done the right thing, this election couldn't go the way it did. Certain of it. She would have had to deal with the anomaly she found there, calling it one way or another. She can't sit back there and say, oh, I don't have the capacity to deal with my managerial task of making a decision about issues that come up in my regime. I mean, it was an amazing thing. But it happened. So let's understand what's going on here, David. People know what's going on in the country. You can't have people foolishness about how many votes you got and come telling them about SUP and all that. And SUP only represent what's in the box. SUP doesn't answer the question of how it got in the box. And we all know that nowadays that elections are manipulated long before election day. So all we are seeing, and to this day, after all the gaffe about going to the courts, we cannot deal with the substantive issue in the court. So let me put it this way. The people are fed up with this kind of a process. That don't mean, you must understand this kind of ethnic situation. That don't mean that they're necessarily not going to vote against the PPP, because they are seeing the PNC as the man standing there. And this ethnic situation, the fact that they are fed up don't mean that. So you got to try to create an environment, a political context that will make all the people of in Guyana feel secure. You can't have running down at one group and hope that because they got to succumb to you and maybe not vote for the other side, stay home or whatsoever. It's not going to work. It don't work. It does not work anywhere. You have to try to get an equitable situation in Ghana so we can avoid all election manipulation and all of that. That is where we have to go.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey there weighing in on people's response, and he made reference to the fact that myself and, of course, the WPA did, before we went to the polls in 2020, actually apologized to the supporters of the coalition for the mistakes that the coalition made when in office, especially as it relates to them. We tried to get the entire coalition to do it. They wouldn't bite. Apparently, there's something with politicians and apologizing, but we did it in the WPA, and we apologize on behalf of all of them for what we thought were missteps made by the coalition. Welcome to Politics 101. It's on a Wednesday night, and we are, of course, coming to you from Guyana. Yes. Tomorrow night, we're going to have a public meeting in Buxton, WPA public meeting. The leader of the opposition and leader of the PNC, Aubrey Norton, will be appearing on the platform as a guest speaker from a PNC APNU. So those of you who are in nearby communities, please come out to Buxton tomorrow night, where we will have a public, and we are calling these things public discussions, not to educate people, because as Dr. Jeffrey said, people are very clear about what is, but to help to give hope and to lift them, and for them to know that leaders also care about them and not just to get their votes. Gentlemen, last week, we got the news. The PNC, the PPP in Region 9 seized the PNC's office. I think they knock off the roof and windows, and they said it's government property. The PNC has been occupying the building from 1975, so it's almost 48 years. And the government said this is government property. They seized it, destroyed it, took away records according to the PNC. And then, to the surprise of many, the PNC went up to let them took back the building. And so far, that's where things are. The Vice President, Mr. Jack Dew, said the government did not give the instructions to the police and the regional authorities, which we understand use Venezuelans to dismantle the building. GHK Lall, tell us what's happening there from your standpoint. You had a column called the Great PNC Building something, I can't remember.
Demolition Mystery.
There you go. The floor is yours.
The Great PNC Building Demolition Mystery.
There you go.
Right. Now, let's follow the sequence here carefully. In the middle of in the dark of the night, just after midnight, this demolition occurred. Right away, the flares went up. Part two, the government, the PPP, said is government property, is the property of the state. The PNC said, we've been there for donkey years. 1, 2, 3. Well, you're bracing yourself now for, this is about property and land. This is a legal issue. I don't know how the police got into that at this point, at this early stage. If you've got a problem with illegal occupation, this has to be dealt with through the courts, especially with a long-standing occupier, supposedly illegally, for 48 years. Okay, we're going to come to who are the people involved. Lo and behold, the PNC raised up its red flag and said, hey, buddy, we've been there all this time and we standing on good grounds. Surprisingly, the next chapter in this soap opera mystery was the vice president himself. I saw it first on Demerara Waves, came out and said, well, listen, don't look at the PPP for this. We ain't got nothing to do with this. I'm using my words. We ain't responsible for this. We didn't pass no orders. The PNC promptly moved back in. And I think they have drawn a line in the sand and say, you gotta get me out of here. Now, here's the story. Here's my take on this. If it's not a PPP, then who? Is the PNC broke up its own building? Come on, folks. Is some Venezuelans ain't got nothing to do for go and rob some gold miners, excuse me, or do what it is doing the intimidate the indigenous communities? Go there and target this building that's coincidentally belongs to the PNC. I mean, there's not a piece missing. There's a number of links missing in this chain. And right away, when the PNC then roll over and say, all right, 4 foot up in the air, do what we want. Up comes, when the PNC did not roll over, up comes the man of the man in charge, the vice president himself, and say, well, we hands clean. We hands clean. He like Pontius Pilate. He wash his hand and he party hand. So by process of elimination, who you got left? Rogue elements in the party, people who they can't control, and I don't see that being possible. Now, coincidentally again, the man who is the big man up in Region 9 is not he that shoot some lady in she belly. All right. But I think that matter has been settled amicably. So we leave that alone. But he owe the party, he owed the ruling party for still being there and for still being a free man, I think, based on what first came out. That's my belief. What first came out, as was reported by an injured woman who I take it was an indigenous heritage, which only makes the matter worse. Excuse me. So now, so you got all these mecha in this mystery, this mix. And now, lo and behold, so the PNC is back in there. And I think you're going to have to get a bulldozer or more than that. You're going to have to call in the U.S. Special Forces or something to get rid of them from there. Because the PNC also aired. Before I come to Mr. Parker, the PNC aired the government overreach, the PPP government overreach, and the PNC, and it overreached. And the PNC was lackadaisical in getting the press there and and putting the evidence in front of them and saying, look, they carry the little food where we share, the 11 barrels, the thing with clothing and food we go with thing. And look what they carry documents. You go for Brockton a place and carry documents, which I understand involve objections and membership. Which thief man does do that? Which man who come for broke up a building because of illegal squatting, just carry away, left for thief man, just carry away documents. Huh? Just carry away barrels that got basics inside. Wait. How is that how does that jive with breaking up a building that is supposed to be illegally there? That is state property, so you don't belong here. You broke up the property and say you carry your thing. So how did that not happen? What were the ulterior motives, to use our leaders' words that they use up in? What were the real motives here? We go a step further now. You ain't lock up nobody. You ain't tell me that anybody is under the radar. You're investigating. But Mr. Carl Parker, who happens to be a PNC, former PNC chairman or official, he get arrested. I mean, is he thing get broke up? So we come again to another, as I'm saying this right off the bat, regardless where he get in other people's face, or he didn't, or he objected, or he was untimely, or what, or he was hostile. Here's this. Is he thing broke up? And I'm using the Creoles here. Is his building, where he has been a part of, since he living in that community, where he's been intimately and intricately involved in, is he placed? So you're going to tell me the people who act, the perpetrators are walking around free and smirking, and this man who may have raised a righteous objection, you hold he? This is governance. This is equity. This is accountability that the president loves to talk about. This is how you're going to get one Guyana. And by the way, when you bring in foreigners for do your dirty work, and I'm placing this at the feet, on the head of the PPP, they can't tell me they know about this. When you bring in foreigners for do your dirty work, you are introducing a volatile ingredient to an already volatile situation. It may look subdued on the surface, but it is really not so. This is bigger than a mystery. This is a comic book story, except that a lot of records are missing, and a lot of mischief can be done with those records. And a building now is scrambled.
Henry Jeffrey, um, have they gone too far?
Well, I'm telling you, the law allowed the PPP to do a lot of things, and you mustn't be surprised if it's to their advantage. There are many advantages here for them. First of all, they want to humiliate the PPPNC. And they just come from India, where the same thing happening. People pelting opposition, the ruling party pelting people, opposition people's headquarters, and all that sort of thing. But when they say that they are not responsible, they in the PPP in charge of that region, did they win that region of the local government? Are they responsible for these regional officers that are there? And it wasn't he there saying why this thing has happened and so on? Certainly the PPP cannot expect anybody to believe them. This is a hell of a thing goes on in this country. They know that most people do not believe. They know it. That people would not believe this kind of thing. But then up you get now. And I see Lincoln Lewis saying, oh, the PPP just took the office in Linden. And Hammy Green write a thing suggesting, and don't just throw away this suggestion, that you had records there of Venezuelans that was illegally registered in one way or another. Now, so you see what it means. If you got illegally registered Venezuelan, you can operate like if you're going to humiliate the PPP and PNC and all of that. It works. It works for them. It works. And then I think, well, I'm going to leave that part for the moment because I think sometimes when the PNC itself speak, it must recognize how it is saying things, because it can say things in a manner that sort of reduces the effectiveness of its own party. But let me leave that for the time being. The important thing that you must recognize here is that the crunch of what we got on the ground now is winning elections. if it is true, and I want to emphasize that the PPP that the regional office took away records that suggest that Venezuelans were being illegally registered from the PNC office, somebody at GCOM and elsewhere needs to get on that case, because that's where the rubber hit the road. That is where it will hit the road. So, but no, I'm not surprised. They got a whole lot of wins here. They apparently show their supporters that they can throw out the PNC. PNC is a weakling party. They would like to say, well, as GHK say, they gone back in and build bulldozer whatsoever. And what, of all things, they have records about our doing wickedness in Region 9. We got to get that one way or another. So, David, when I heard that occurred, I thought it was just the humiliation bit, just going down this road. When I see what is the other things, I say, this is Guyana, my dear friend. This is what politicians do when not only in Ghana, when they don't want to leave office, when they want to control a situation all the time. That's what happens. You have to be prepared if you're a government. If you are a government and you're a Democrat, you have to prepare that it is possible that you will lose, and be prepared to lose. And lose fairly, of course, not that people come in and round roughshod over you and say you lose. But you have to do that. Any person, any party that is in power and telling people they're there forever, for whatever reason, is not a democratic party. But then again, Guyana is classed as an electoral democracy. All I mean is just, all you do is have an election. God knows what is happening. That's what Guyana is classed as. Not as a liberal democracy, not an electoral democracy. That is all you have. And then the electoral democracy, virgin on autocracy. That's what the people say. That's
virgin on autocracy.
Anyway, time are running out, so I'm not going to go for that.
Well, yes. Robin Simon will appear at the Sparendam Magistrate Court tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Robin is the young lady who was spearheading the resistance after Quindon Bacchus was murdered, and now she apparently is being charged for what they call this story, what they call the charge, terrorism. And she'll be appearing in court tomorrow. Those of you in the Plaisance, Sparendam area or somewhere in the East Coast, please come out and show solidarity at 9 in the morning. Robin Simon will be, as we say in Guyana, passing through court in the morning. We think that they are going to charge her for terrorism. They'll be charging her as a terrorist. We think so. We're not sure what the charge will be. 9 o'clock in the morning. Make sure that you're out there. GHK Lall, we get consumed, understandably so, with everything that's happening within the borders of Guyana, and we forget that we still have Venezuela out there to deal with. There have been some rumblings coming from that end. Bring us up to date.
Well, no sooner that sanctions have been partially eased on Venezuela, where Chevron is back, it's been given a clearance to come back, and it's trying to rebuild some of the oil infrastructure of Venezuela, that President Nicolas Maduro, who is a survivor, let's say that, he starts rattling his saber. He's warning the United States and Guyana for all this extractivism in waters that are disputed, and that this is this is a dangerous path, and that be duly warned that this is highly, highly provocative, aggressive, provocative, and it will not be tolerated. So I think that Venezuela has immediately come out. I would have thought that Mr. Maduro would have been glad he's going around and pressing the flesh in different world capitals and trying to reduce the stench of pariah status that he's endured for so long, that he would have kept a low profile, at least on this Venezuela Guyana border issue, for a little while longer. But he must be under some tremendous pressure too within his constituency, because we're talking about 11 billion barrels of oil, and he'll draw the map wherever suits him. 11 billions of barrel of oil, more and more massive mega gold companies coming here, foreign gold companies coming here and going into our hinterland locations, definitely Essequiba as they call it, and that's lost treasure for the Venezuelans. So he's ringing his bell and saying, "Hey, what are you guys doing over there? We don't like that. We will not sit back quietly and let that go on." And why I'm glad we are talking about this subject is that look how quickly and assertively, even aggressively, belligerently, President Maduro of Venezuela, our neighbor, has come out with this. We, in the meantime, are bulldozing homes, dividing communities, broken down buildings. I'm sorry, I can't seem to bring myself to say demolish. Broken down buildings in the middle of the night and creating greater and greater rawness in the divisions and the polarizations that are ravaging this country. Not because the president talk about one Guyana, we even got quarter Guyana. So let's get that part out of the way. So here we are, perched on top of the world, or supposedly perched on top of the world, but everything below us is decayed, is crumbly, is collapsible. And our prime adversary, maybe our sworn enemy, I'll go so far as to say, not maybe, take out that, our sworn enemy, is already on the move saying, "Hey, what y'all doing down there? We don't take too kindly to that." So where are Indians and African Guyanese on this? Where is the PNC, PPP as a government? It has to take the lead here. And the PN. Look, we can all make speeches. Oh, we are ready and we are prepared to defend to the death our borders. Let's cut the crap out, as Henry Jeffrey just said. Let's cut the nonsense out. At least we can show one face, one body, one strength, one closed fist. Some people might say that's the Black Power fist. One closed fist and say, "Here, you're going to have to pay a heavy price for this." But we don't have that. We don't have that. And I've got to put this tinge to it. The people who standing up at the border is one kind of people. The Guyanese people on this side of the border who standing up there, who at risk, who could be sacrificial lambs in the event of an escalation or a deterioration. Is the president and the PPP not conscious of that when Mr. Maduro rattles his sword? When Mr. Maduro engages in bellicose language? When he is adopting a hostile and warlike attitude? These are not easy words to say. So early in the game, the people just open the door for you go and ship some oil to them under some restrictions, and you are already looking at we and sounding off. My point is, where I'm going here is the third tripod, third leg in the president's inaugural tripod. Transparency, what he said we got. I don't know which world he lives in. Accountability, I see it, I gonna know it. And unity. We don't have unity. We don't even have tolerance in this country. We need harmony if we are going to have a chance to rally people to our side in this warming up, heating up of Venezuelan rhetoric. That is why I felt it was timely to talk about this, because within a matter of months, weeks maybe, as soon as the sanctions are eased on Venezuela, Guyana is right on its lips. That was not random, my brothers. Listeners, that was not random. And unless we close ranks, I mean, not just for public relations purposes, but as a nation, as a people, with one destiny, with one ambition, with one to where all of us feel we have a part in this patrimony, then we talk in cheese and we spitting in the wind. Let Venezuela be a wake-up call for us.
Henry Jeffrey, geopolitics.
Yes. The truth is, Venezuela don't have a good case. We have gone to court. They don't accept that we should go to court. That court is necessary. They said today that the Geneva Agreement of 1966 take the position of the arbitration arrangement. Of course, that's nonsense. Because what happened, the Geneva Agreement, Burnham always said, it's a controversy. It's not a dispute. It's a controversy about your claim that you were robbed. It is not anybody accepting that claim and saying, well, all right, let me go back to arbitration. That is why when they first came up with this situation that they were robbed and all of that, that the British judge, the British representative and the Russian chairman, they come and concoct some things to give Guyana much more than they deserved. Of course, the British can well say, we were claiming till to the Orinoco, by which time Guyana would have all of the oil, because if it was Venezuela have the most oil in the world. Yeah, I mean, and the Orinoco, where Exxon apparently still has its property, did not move it, because that is prime property in terms of oil. So effectively, the British was claiming till to the Orinoco. So effectively, the case is not good. The Americans got them to concoct this situation to prevent Cheddy Jagan from running this country and moving it towards communism during that era. If Burnham did not, and the PNC was not successful, they had Venezuela back up. Jagan himself said, not me, and the thing, that was what it's there for. It came about to keep a tight leash on Jagan, at least, keep a tight leash on Jagan, just in case the opposition did not succeed in keeping him out of government. But you know what worries me? You know, GHK, we're going to hear much more of this from the Venezuelans, because we are dealing with global politics here. The Chinese lost arbitration in the China Sea to who? The Philippines. Remember? China said, we are not going to accept it, and they have not. Philippines every day got to be complaining. The British lost the case in the Chagos Island, lost the case in to Mauritius. The people tell them, allow the inhabitants that they move from there in all sort of shoddy way to go back. British said, we're sorry how we moved them. That was the bad thing we did. But we are not allowing them to go back. And the ICJ, you even have a United Nations, a United General Assembly resolution that must move, and they are not going back. So we have gone to court, but that court ain't gonna solve the issue. Then never gonna solve the issue. You're gonna get this from Venezuela every anniversary, all the time. There's no end to this. And what might make it worse is that when they have no legal way to go, when I say legal, a proper agreed upon arrangement to deal with it. You remember white trade unions were recognized in the first part of the Industrial Revolution. They were recognized because of wildcat strikes. The bourgeois sit down and they said, "But you can't not have trade union. We don't want trade union, but you better have somebody that you can talk to stop these people because they're striking all over the place." No, we got to be very serious. Venezuela, I believe at the end of the day, after this court case, I think they lose. Because I don't think they have any solid case here. But when they lost, they're going to stop them. They're going to continue this, and we're going to have some sort of arrangement for discourse. Some sort of arrangement for discourse. So what they are doing, they're not surprising. It was the anniversary of 20-something and 50-something anniversary of the Geneva Agreement, and they want, and now they are back in Americans' good books in the sense that America needs them in the Ukraine debacle and the need for oil and all of that. And so they are doing what they are doing. We have got to keep our eyes open. Don't start believing that this court case is the end of anything. If the very people who tell you go to court and so on are not accepting when the court will say Venezuela will not accept, at the end of the day, you know what put an end to this thing? Power. Who got power? Who had power? Yes. Who has power? The 1899 arbitration was a result of who got power. America had power and said to Britain, "We will go to war with you if you don't go to arbitration. You are not extending your hold in Latin America according to the Monroe Doctrine." And Britain had to back down. The young and coming, vibrant America said, "You are not, or we'll go to war." And Britain back down. At the end of the day, these matters are only settled finally in that way or in some kind of agreement in the party. Venezuela is our neighbor. They're going to be there all the time. And every year or something, anniversary, you're going to hear the same thing. So we got to be prepared for it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Henry Jeffrey, Dr. GHK Lall. And you coming on tonight, and as they say here in Politics 101, the Spin Twins are back. We've run short on time, so we skipped the closing thoughts tonight. Thank you, and I'll see you all in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you.
And,
thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the audience, for staying with us. Please, those of you who are in the vicinity of the Sparendam Magistrates Court, please turn out in the morning. Robin Simon of Golden Grove is passing through court tomorrow. We suspect that she would be charged for or with terrorism in relation to what happened or what was made to happen at Monrepo. So turn up in the morning if you can make it. If not, I'm sure the various programs will be live. Thank you all so very much for coming on to Public Politics 101. Tomorrow night, of course, we are coming to you live from Buxton, WPA public meeting. Main speakers, yours truly, Takumo Gunse, Kidaki Amsterdam, and the guest speaker will be Mr. Aubrey Norton, leader of the opposition and the PNC. See you all from Buxton tomorrow evening. And then on Friday night, we come back with Black Matters. Black Matters.